Hey, book babes. I'm glad to be back here with you. We are here for chapter 11, which is November. And the context of this chapter is to keep a contented heart. It's all about checking your attitude. The little side sections that she has in this chapter is laugh out loud, use good manners, give positive reviews, and find an area of refuge. And I really love that. So the first thing that kind of spoke to me, jumped out to me in this chapter, was the idea that a small child typically laughs more than 400 times a day, and an adult 17 times. And I'm like, whoa, that is a huge difference. Could you imagine laughing 400 times a day? But then when you think about it, you think of your little baby like sitting on the couch as you change their little diaper and you tickle their little belly and they just belly laugh. And then they see the TV show and they belly laugh and they pick up a rock and they belly laugh. And I'm like, take me back to those laughing days. Because when she asked herself, I wondered if I hit even that number most days. As I was sitting in parent pickup line the other day, I was like, I wonder, like, how many times do I laugh in a day? Am I at 17? Like, oh, that's kind of concerning, like I want to laugh 400 times a day.
When I first heard it, I was like, 17, that's not much. I have to laugh more than that. And then when you kind of like audit it and you think, like I was thinking about the day before, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it really might be like that number. And you don't think anything of it until you get like it pointed out and you're like, oh, wow. Like there's definitely not a whole lot of laughter. And I think that it's an interesting thing to put intention on, because I think sometimes we think of laughter as involuntary, as something that we don't really have a whole lot of control over. And something that I love that she talks about is kind of like forcing yourself to laugh. And she talks about how it really goes back to her secret of adulthood about feel or act how you want to feel. And so if you want to laugh more, then you need to force yourself to laugh more. And she tells a story about how her daughter told her this corny knock knock joke for like the 10th time in a row, and all of a sudden starts pouting at her mom. And she's like, what's wrong, baby? Like, what's wrong? She's like, you didn't laugh at my joke. And it kind of like dawned on Gretchen. She's like, oh, like I need to laugh. She's like, okay, tell me it again. And she tells her again, and she laughs, and she just like felt so much better after that. And she's like, they need to hear the laughter. And it was so easy for me just to brush it off. But then when I actually sat there in the moment and laughed with her and laughed at it, I realized that she needed that laugh as much as I did. And I thought that that was so cute and so powerful for her to talk about.
Absolutely. So this is a kind of a funny story, but I actually used to be a senior photographer. Like, love taking pictures, and I love taking pictures of like high school seniors for their yearbook, like their pictures that they're going to remember. But sometimes when you're working with high school students, you have issues of self-confidence and self-esteem, and especially when you're taking pictures of the boys, they're all like pissed off at the world because teenagers, and Lord have mercy, God forbid anyone ever see them smile. And so I always had the mom who's like, I just want one of him smiling with his teeth. I'm like, how do you make boys smile? And so I would always do this thing where it would be like, okay, make your serious face. Okay, now laugh out loud. Literally, I would prompt them to go and laugh out loud, because more times than not, when they're doing that, they're thinking in their head like, oh my gosh, this is so dumb. And then they actually smile. And so like that's kind of like transformed into anytime I take pictures, I am building a team. Like I have a huge team of girls who are behind me, and we always get together and we have fun events. And it's hilarious because anytime we take a group picture, one of us will cackle like a freaking witch and be as loud as we possibly can and totally obnoxious. And then it starts like this whole cycle of belly laughing because we're all laughing at her fake laugh. And then we actually really laugh. And I don't know, it's like exactly what you said. If you just force it sometimes, it's going to come natural. And it's like creating that laughter even when it's not there.
I love it. And then she kind of talks about how like she puts it, like she finds ways and like little things that will make her laugh, or like that she thinks is funny. So she like compiled like this list together that she like thinks of, and it makes her laugh. And I think that, like you said, it's like kind of like a mind trick, like tricking yourself into that feeling. And I think because laughter is contagious. So not only are you getting the benefit of feeling better and getting that like temporary, like little boost in moods, but when other people hear you laugh, then they're going to laugh too. And there's so many times that I can think of like being in a line at a grocery store and like seeing that little kid who's like sitting in the cart ahead of you, and you start like making faces at them and they're making faces at you back, and you start laughing, and then the mom's laughing, and then the cashier just thinks it's funny. And I just think that just there's so much power in those like little moments, and nothing needs to be said. It's just simple like laughter. And I love the laugh out loud.
Well, and I think she also touches on it, like where she says, like, we're just so busy, right? She compares New York City to Kansas City and like the speed at what they live. And so one of the things that really spoke to me was, instead of moving fast and speaking curtly, I wanted to take time to be pleasant. So really slowing down in our life and not wear that badge of busy, but instead like just be mindful again of who's around us and what we're doing, and making sure we're showing that attention. But she really brought up a powerful point here where it said, responding with laughter meant that I had to give up my pride, my defensiveness, my self-centeredness. A lot of times it's like dancing, right? We get so self-conscious, or like that fear sneaks in of, well, what if we laugh? You know, what's going to happen? And nothing's going to happen except for you're going to boost your mood. But it's like, again, like the high school senior who's like, oh, I can't let the world see my smile. Why not? Why just put down your walls, swallow your pride, and be a human being, because it's going to make you feel 100 times better.
Definitely. And it kind of just like goes back to, people don't notice your mistakes as much as you think they do. Like if you are self-conscious about your laugh, you're self-conscious about your smile, you're self-conscious about something, like most times people are never going to realize the same things you are. So I love that you talk about like the self-consciousness part of it, like just to be able to let go of that and just allow yourself to laugh. Like it's just such a powerful thing.
Absolutely.
And then going into her next section, she puts use good manners. And I just thought that this is so funny. I work in customer service a lot, and I am always taken back when people are nice. And when people use manners, like little things, like if somebody looks at me and, you know, I'm giving them their order and they're all set and I'm like, all right, have a great day. And they look at me and say, hey, thanks, you too. I'm just kind of like, oh, they saw me. Or it's like shocking if someone said, like someone comes up and like, hey, how are you doing today? I'm like, me? You're talking to me? And I think that it's just little things like pleases and thank yous and saying hi to strangers, and just those little things that really go such a far way that I think get forgotten. And I think using them and her putting it out there that was something she wanted to concentrate on this month, was just, you know, utilizing those little things that you might have let go to the wayside because you're just kind of you're in your feels, you're not really, you know, paying attention to people around you, you're not thinking that what you're doing is impacting them, but it does. And she definitely covers that a little bit in the use good manners, and I loved it.
Well, and I love this too. In the area that I have highlighted, it says to be more agreeable and kind. And I think that I'm a very kind person. Agreeable. After I was reading this, I'm like, man, I don't know if that's my strong suit. She said I needed to use better manners as a conversationalist. And I realized, like, some of the things she says, like, you're right. You have a good memory. Tell everyone the story about how I hadn't thought about that before. I see your point. What do you think? And those are like the actual words that she says that she wants to try and use. And I realized I'm not really much of a conversationalist. One, I don't like small talk. Like, I don't know why. I can't tell you why. But if you're going to, like, I don't like talking on the phone. I will, especially people that I love. But I don't have a lot to say, right? Like, if you're talking to me, yep, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen. But I'm not good at the small talk. And a lot of the times when people are talking to me, I have my analytical brain going and I'm like, oh, I want to solve this problem. Oh, I want to solve this problem. Oh, let me give you this advice. Oh, why don't you try this? And like reading this little section, I was like, dude, you need to put your nice pants on and quit being a big jerkwad, because not everybody likes that. Just because I like that, just because that's how my brain thinks. Sometimes people just want to be heard and they don't actually want a solution. They don't actually want your opinion or your advice. They just want you to be there, be in the conversation with them. And so that was kind of a gut check to me. I need to use better manners in conversations. I need to be willing to step outside my character so that I can listen instead of being like, still be an active participant, but not overbearing in the conversation, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I think that I like that she covered on the other side of that, listening as a combative person. And that's what spoke to me. So opposed to thinking of ways I can help solve people when they're talking, I am more of, do I believe what they're saying? Do I think I can disprove what they're saying? Can I fact check what they're saying? And I don't know if it comes from just a general area of distrust or if where that comes from. But when I read that, I was like, ooh, that one is me. And it's kind of going into conversations with that more positive mindset of, I don't need to disprove anything. I don't need to argue with them about their feelings. I don't need to necessarily even dig deeper. I should just be able to allow them to have this conversation with me and kind of just leave it and accept what they're saying. And I love that she kind of talked about that, because that was my gut check.
I love that we both had such separate gut checks from this little section. Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. And then her next little section is giving positive reviews. And she says it's because like giving positive reviews requires the humility. And I think that's kind of a little bit of what you're talking about, where why don't you just lift someone up, right? Like accept what they say, cheer them on, celebrate them. And I think that it's so true. Think of the last time you bought something somewhere, right? If it was a terrible experience, you're going to go everywhere and you're going to go to Facebook and you're going to vent, complain, and say, don't ever shop here because blah, blah, blah. But what about that person who is exceptionally amazing to you and treated you awesome? Why not go out of the way to give them that positive review? Literally give them a positive review and say, hey, I don't know if you've been here, but definitely check it out. That person was amazing and my service was awesome and blah, 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 right? And so that was kind of like a thing, because I'm that person. I shop on Amazon, I buy things places, but I never go above and beyond to praise the people or praise the positive experiences. And I think that can be super powerful, because think of the smile that's going to put on someone else's face.
Definitely. And I think that it's just easier in human nature to like pick out the wrong and almost expect that if you are given something that works, if you're given an experience that was well put together, that you almost think that you are owed that. So therefore you're like, oh, well, I got exactly what I expected. I don't need to leave the review. And you feel sometimes that reviews are only for like constructive criticism. And so I love that she talks about, you can acknowledge the good that people are doing too. You want to acknowledge when things are working really, really well, when the people do their service well, when people at the restaurant are going, above and beyond. Maybe they're making sure that you have all your water and your sauces, and they're checking in with you and having that real conversation, and just going back and, like I said, leaving that positive review. It was really funny when I came back to this, because Jimmy and I were just talking about how his job had a meeting today where they're giving a $25 incentive if they get a Google review left with their name in it, because the power of positive reviews and getting your names out there and stuff like that. So when I came back to this, I just had to kind of chuckle, because they, as a company, are recognizing that they need, especially in the times right now, because they are a small owned business, they need that word of mouth. They need that positive recognition. They need, when people search them or search up their company on Google or whatever service, that they're seeing that there's other customers who find them reliable and that they give quality work. And they're really relying on that to get them through this next year. And so I think that it just really shows the power of doing something as simple as taking the 2 minutes maybe just to give that experience. So
absolutely. And then closer to the end of this little section, she talks about the joyous types of people versus the non-joyous types of people. And I thought this was really, really interesting and powerful, because when you think of someone who's super, super happy, super excited, they're ready, right? They wake up in a good mood and they're farting out rainbows and butterflies. You're like, okay, that's fake. No, okay, you're so cool. I don't believe it. You're so fake. Like, we're so apt to jump on that mindset, to literally steal their joy but why, right? Like we're so ready to just pull the rug out from underneath them, to tear them down. Why don't we just let them be, right? Like, why not just cheer them on? Why not just let them be happy? Instead of shielding their joy, we blast it. And she had a lot of blog readers who came back at it and at her response and said, that means the world to me, because a lot of the times I don't feel seen, and it's so heavy to stay so light when feel like you're being attacked, or feel like you're not being appreciated or even recognized, you know?
Definitely. And then I think that it's just she believes in the last little section, she kind of talks about it in November, just talking to, once she realized she was keeping the resolutions and that these things made her happy, I ended up feeling happier and acting more virtuously. And I think that just kind of goes simultaneously with what you're saying, that when you go through and you do these actions, it is making you feel better. And then do good, feel good, do good. And it's one of those, like kind of said before, about the ripple effect. And I just love the do good, feel good, do good, because it just creates the cycle.
Absolutely. And I definitely think like that's one of those splendid truths that you're really hanging on to, because like, you know, it really just, it makes sense. Why wouldn't that be the truth? Another thing that really stood out to me in here, she talks about, you know, how she talked about in the marriage one, like one bad thing, 5 good acts of repair. It takes 5 good acts to repair the damage of one destructive act. And that's not just in your relationship, but even in relationships with other people. And so in here, she challenged herself to a Pollyanna week. And a Pollyanna week means, in Eleanor's, here's the quote, in Eleanor Porter's enormously successful 1913 novel, Pollyanna plays the glad game. Whatever happens to her, she finds a reason to be glad about it. So Gretchen challenged herself to a Pollyanna week, which would be a week solid where she would have 0 negative comments. Could you imagine going one day making 0 negative comments?
I always have to catch myself on the daily giving just the sly remarks, not even the things that necessarily like you say out loud, but the things that little voice in the back of your head when you see that girl that is wearing that peculiar jacket and you make the comment in your head, like, why is she wearing that? And I think that it's those things when you're in Pollyanna week that you check. And then you say, why do I feel the need to, even if you're not saying it out loud, because I think it's easy to be like, oh, well, I don't say negative comments about people, or I don't say negative things, but are you thinking them? Because I think that's just as powerful as if you are saying them out loud. And
your thoughts are everything.
Pollyanna, I love that she has these weekly challenges of like the idea of like being nice. And I think that it's a little eye-opening, because every time she poses the idea of doing this thing for 7 days, whether it's be extremely nice to your husband for 7 days or not have negative thoughts for 7 days. It's funny how it's only a week, but it seems excruciatingly long when I think of and especially I think working outside the house, because I constantly am in contact with people that make me kind of question humanity, to say the least. And so if I was to do Pollyanna week, to like go through and not give that judgment and give everybody kind of that grace and stuff like that, I think it's humbling.
Absolutely. Because you realize, just like you said, your thoughts control so much, and you are what you think 100%. Like it could be something as simple as you thinking in the back of your head, like, don't worry, husband, I'll take out the trash. Like that's not nice of you. Or like, oh my gosh, do we have to play this game one more time, child? Like when you're thinking that in your head, you're annoyed. You're taken straight to that negativity path. So I would challenge you, like our listeners, like challenge yourself to go one day just to, again, it goes back to the last chapter where what you track, you improve. If you're tracking your attitude, how different is that going to become, right? Because you realize your shortcomings or where you can change that. And I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, and she kind of covers that in the same line with one consequence of the negativity bias is that when people's minds are unoccupied, they tend to drift to anxious and angry thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just so true. If you're in that negative mindset where you're always kind of looking for those negative things and you're looking for the things that are people doing wrong, when you are not presented with those things right in that moment, your unoccupied brain is still in that kind of negativity mode. So it's not going to give you positive thoughts and positive reaffirmations in your brain. Your brain is going to be wired to give you the anxious thoughts, the negative self-talk, because how you talk to others is how you're talking to yourself. That's just is what it is. And I think that her kind of calling that out, where if you're in that negative mind space, your brain isn't just going to switch off of that when you're not in that judgment right then and there. It is going to stay in that negative mind, and it's going to almost infiltrate, poison all the other incoming thoughts that you're going to have and put it into that negative mind space.
And I loved how she applied, like she shared this really tactical tool on how she really overcomes that thought process. And she said, I'd often notice my own tendency to brood, and to counter this effect, I invented the idea of the area of refugee. So that kind of she's taken to her happy place, right? Like, so she is stuck with this negative thought, and she immediately tries to turn it around so that she can think of things that bring her joy immediately. Like it's kind of like a joy list in her brain, whether it's that special event or, you know, something from a child's book that she loves. It's something that really means something to her, and that's going to really change her attitude.
And I love and have to share the story that she writes in here, and that, and she talks about how her daughter wanted to grow out her hair, and that and I have 3 little girls, and my middle girl has the thickest, curliest, long hair, and she's 3. And so when she instantly starts talking about her daughter and maintaining her hair, instantly my mom brain is like, oh my gosh, girl hair is the worst. And she talks about how she had to threaten her daughter, like, if you want to grow out your hair, you're going to have to take care of it. You're going to have to brush it. Your hair, you know, you're going to have to take care of it. And then just kind of kept harping on her about how, you know, Eliza, you need to brush your hair. It's messy. You need to get your part off to the side. You need to get a ponytail or barrette, and just kind of kept harping on her. And then all of a sudden she realized kind of, wait, this isn't going to work. And this isn't the kind of mindset. And the criticism made it no fun for her and no fun for me. So what I did is I took a brush and I started brushing her hair and saying things like, I love seeing your hair so shiny. Your hair is beautiful. And she talked about how her daughter was shocked at first that she was saying these things. And then she says at the end, she didn't get any better about keeping her hair tidy, but it didn't bother me as much. And that's just it. These things in these happiness books isn't going to change the behaviors of others that are making you feel these ways. It's 100% changing how you react to these things and the gratitude that goes behind it, and not taking others down with you with that kind of negative thoughts. And I love that she just said it didn't bother me as much, because that's what it is. It's your reactions to these things that are going on around you.
I absolutely love it because it's so true. Again, it's kind of like the premise of the whole book. When you feel good, you act good, you behave good, you are good. And so it really challenges the idea. She started this whole thing and she wasn't unhappy. She was never unhappy, but could she be better? And we're seeing how she's transformed in this book. Absolutely, she's better. She is a much better human. And now she is promoting that just simply by saying like, hey, when you feel good, you behave good. And when you behave good, you treat others better. And when you treat others better, they feel good. And it's like this amazing circle of awesomeness that I totally love. And like, it's just beautiful. We don't have to be unhappy to make difference, like to make little changes, to make a big difference in someone else's life. Like you said, when someone just says hi to you when you're at work and acknowledges you, slows down enough to be like, how's your day so far? That's all that people really want. Like, just accept me, just say hey, just smile. you know?
Exactly. All right, well, that pretty much closes out this chapter, book babes, which means we are going into the last month, which, if you weren't aware, is the application of all of the chapters in 1 month. So we are so excited to start wrapping this up with you guys. We will check in with you guys on the next one.